Yes. Um, I mean, if you think about it and you imagine money, and so anybody listening to this now, and you say, okay, draw me a mental picture of money. People still generally think of notes and coins, or even gold. Whereas, of course, 98% of money in circulation in Britain today, and I think the figure is very similar in Germany, or I think it's even higher in a country like Sweden. The vast majority of money in circulation doesn't take the form of notes and coins. It takes the form of claims made through the banking system, and often mediated by plastic cards of one form or another. So once you start thinking of money in more abstract terms, and you start thinking, actually, it's not notes and coins, it's actually just a series of claims, then you begin to understand that money has a kind of dynamic quality, and that it's more like a verb than a noun. Actually, money is actually just a series of claims that move between people.
this sort of weather, cloudy but light, and appreciate the sun is out there somewhere, I would at home be able to run my washing machine off the power that you get off the roof at this time. Solar is not just about PV. It's solar energy that produces the wind as well and produces the biogas that can provide the backup to both wind and PV. Even at night time, all my electricity is at home is solar. My lights haven't gone off in the last 2 years that I've been having my supply from them. PV provides power when we need it most. It peaks, as we all know, about midday when the sun is highest in the sky, and that's actually when the demand for electricity is at its most, when we're cooking lunch. And Germany, they have shown that it not only peaks at around the right time, but the PV power follows the shape of demand. At the moment in Germany, around noon, the time of peak demand, when electricity is actually the most expensive, the PV that they get has reduced the price of wholesale price of electricity on the grid considerably.
So talking about social media, are your parents on any social sites like Facebook, Twitter, etc.?
My mum and dad are on Facebook. My mum uses hers only to kind of see what I'm doing.
Stalk you?
Kind of, yeah. My dad, he's on Facebook every once in a while. Again, he does kind of stalk me as well because he's very paranoid about Facebook, about social media sites. Every once in a while I get an email from him and it will be like, just so you know, this was on your profile. I keep telling him I'm unsearchable, you can't find me, but so he only uses it to make himself more
Laughter, it's said, is the best medicine, and there's lots of evidence that laughter does lots of satisfying things for us. It reduces throbbing and allows us to endure discomfort. It reduces blood sugar levels, increasing glucose tolerance in diabetics and non-diabetics alike. It improves your job take effect achievement. Especially if your motion depends on creativity and solving unspecified problems. It synchronizes the brains of speaker and listener as a consequences that they are emotionally attuned. Laughter establishes, or restores, a deferential emotional climate and a desirability of attachment in the middle of two people. In fact, some researchers believe that major move and achievement of laughter is to bring people together, and all the health advance of laughter may usefully result from the social part that laughter
We may be running out of dirt. The intensive farming of recorded history, accelerated by the last several decades of industrial agriculture, now strips the soil of some 20 tons of dark, rich organic matter per hectare per year. That's not just a problem for farmers. Much of that carbon ends up in the atmosphere, contributing to climate change, which then goes on to exacerbate other food-growing issues, such as droughts or floods and extreme temperatures. Plus, degraded soils spur farmers to clear yet more land, contributing to the rapid destruction of the world's forests, further exacerbating climate change. So the future of farming is in large part a future of fighting climate change and battling to preserve soils. Fortunately, there are several promising methods. No-till farming, in which soil is left undisturbed by plows, can help restore some 600 to 900 megatons of carbon to the earth over several decades. And organic matter can be put back into the soil more directly via a method known as biochar. Basically, waste plant matter is burned into charcoal and then added to the soil. In addition to keeping carbon out of the atmosphere, such biochar may also improve fertility, though it probably can't be practiced on a global scale. Ultimately, the future of farming will also be decided by the future of eating. The amount of land needed for farming in the first place could be radically reduced if people stopped eating as much meat.
When people over 65 show losses in their short-term memory and comprehension, it's no surprise. But a new study claims that a general cognitive decline starts to set in as early as age 45. The research is in the British Medical Journal. Scientists tracked more than 5,000 men and 2,000 women between ages 45 and 70 for 10 years, starting in 1997. The study subjects were tested 3 times over the 10 years for memory, vocabulary, and comprehension skills. For instance, as a test of comprehension, they were asked to recall as many words and animal names beginning with the letter S as possible. The participants' scores went down in all categories except vocabulary. Both men and women who were between 45 and 49 at the start of the study experienced a 3.6% decline in mental ability over the decade. Research shows that active lifestyles, both mentally and physically, slow down brain aging. Scientists thus feel it's important to know when mental decline typically starts, so that people who are getting older, and that's all of us, can be encouraged to get active sooner rather than later, and then have a decent chance to find those car keys.
I'd like to start by pointing out that although 1 in 4 people has some kind of disability, the proportion among students is much lower. This is partly because most students are under 25 and many people only develop their disabilities as they get older, but it's also because some universities don't do much to encourage access. It is true, though, that some have quite sticky problems when it comes to, for instance, wheelchair access, ancient buildings, cobbled streets built centuries ago, and so on. When faced with such a situation, some universities make an extra special effort to provide for students with particular disabilities, while others have specialist accommodation. In fact, all universities should have a written policy statement on students with disabilities, setting out what facilities they have, what their attitude is, and what they're prepared to do. But having said that, only you can properly understand the challenges of any disability you have, and so before accepting a place at a university, or even while you're considering applying, if only to raise the university's awareness, it's good to talk to them and find out how much they can and will do for you.
Hello, my name's Dan, and I'm going to be living with a family in Edinburgh for 3 months, so I'd like some advice on what to bring with me.
Let's start with cash. You'll already have money in your bank account here, of course, but make sure when you get here you have some cash on you. Pounds, that is, not euros or dollars.
How much do you suggest?
I'd say 50 as an absolute minimum.
Okay. Now, the next thing is which clothes to bring. What do you think?
Well, as I'm sure you know, it can get pretty cold here, so you will need some warm clothing. There are shops near here that sell winter clothes quite cheaply, so you really don't need to bring much. Do make sure, though, that you have at least one thick sweater and a jacket with you when you arrive here. The temperature is likely to be a lot lower than in Singapore.
Oh, thanks for the warning. Now, something else I'm not sure about is whether to bring my computer. It's a laptop, so it won't take up much room.
2 problems. Firstly, it might not be compatible with the electricity supply in this country. And secondly, there's a risk of it getting broken in transit. Someone travelling here had hers smashed only last month.
But surely I can carry it as hand luggage.
Usually, yes, but because of all the tight security right now, you may have to check it in. So my advice is to leave yours at home.
Okay, I think I will. Is there anything else you'd advise against bringing?
Well, you won't need household or cooking things. They'll all be provided. And importing food, of course, isn't allowed by customs, though I imagine you already knew that.
Well, yes.
But There are one or two things I'd suggest you find room for in your suitcase.
Yes?
Perhaps a few of your favourite cassettes or compact discs. Of course, you might be able to find them in the shops here, but then again, you might not.
That's a good idea. Anything else?
Yes. Some photographs of people and places that are special to you could be nice. They can really make your room feel like home. It's just a thought.
I'll see if I've got a few good ones.
A nutrition expert at the university for what him unknown, say the simple sugar and candy bars can give you a quick boost. But after the initial rush, you usually crush it, feel worse than before the snap. They say what you need is complex carbohydrates like a bagel or a bowl of not sugar-coating cereal. Try carrying a variety of pack-size box to work with you and buying a small carton of milk from the vending machine. Carbohydrates help you sustain a blood sugar level that is neither too high nor too low. That means you have a steady flow of energy to finish your day.
One of the things that people have said about agriculture is that on the whole it is more labor-intensive than hunting and gathering. And that's one of the reasons why people have looked to explanations which, you might say, are kind of coercive factors that people have been forced into agriculture because they had no alternative. That is ultimately what may happen. But at the very beginning it could be that agriculture was developed because people wanted special status foods for feasting, that it was actually a social need. I mean, how much of what we do in our lives is generated by competition with others? And a lot of that is powered by desire for new things, new statuses, new whatever it might be. Respect and recognition also are important. And in small-scale societies a lot of those sorts of factors are generated by the ability to, for instance, throw feasts. One possibility is that some of these foods that were being grown were actually intended especially as feasting foods.
The researchers began by considering that a uniform field of energy pervaded the universe shortly after the Big Bang. Scientists expect that such fields existed in the distant past. After the universe rapidly expanded, this energy field would have separated into clumps. Gravity would cause these clumps to attract one another and merge together. The UCLA researchers proposed that some small fraction of these growing clumps became dense enough to become black holes.
A 52-million-year-old ankle fossil suggests our pre-human ancestors were high-flying acrobats. For years, scientists thought the ancestors of today's humans, monkeys, lemurs and apes were relatively slow and deliberate animals, using their grasping hands and feet to creep along small twigs and branches. But a new study suggests the first primates were masters at leaping through the trees.
Evidence shows that a simple view of nature can radically improve health outcomes. So why couldn't we design a hospital where every patient had a window with a view? Simple, site-specific designs can make a hospital that heals. Designing it is one thing, getting it built, we learned is quite another. We worked with Bruce Nizet, a brilliant engineer, and he thought about construction differently than I had been taught in school. When we had to excavate this enormous hilltop, and a bulldozer was expensive and hard to get to site, Bruce suggested doing it by hand, using a method in Rwanda called ubudehe, which means community works for the community. Hundreds of people came with shovels and hoes, and we excavated that hill in half the time and half the cost of that bulldozer. Instead of importing furniture, Bruce started a guild, and he brought in master carpenters to train others on how to make furniture by hand. And on this job site, 15 years after the Rwandan genocide, Bruce insisted that we bring on labor from all backgrounds and that half of them be women. Bruce was using the process of building to heal, not just for those who were sick, but for the entire community as a whole. We call this the locally fabricated way of building, or LoFab, and it has 4 pillars: hire locally, source regionally, train where you can, and most importantly, think about every design decision as an opportunity to invest in the dignity of the places and where you serve.
It's been reported recently that some business schools have decided to make changes to students' grades by increasing them by 10%. This means that a C grade automatically becomes a B, and a B grade automatically becomes an A under the new grading system. And the change is retrospective, which means that it applies to all grades that have been achieved since the school's current grading system, which was introduced in 2007, has been in place. Now, there are at least 8 business schools who've changed their grading levels, and they decided to award their graduates higher grades so they would be more attractive in the highly competitive job market. However, changing grades like this has been criticized by the academic and business communities because many people think the grades have been falsely exaggerated and don't reflect the true ability of the student. In fact, many employers realize when a school has made adjustments to students' grades, and so there is no real benefit in doing this. Lifting the grades may even be damaging to the students, because employers may believe that the graduates were given the high grades when they didn't deserve them.
They woke up to a massacre here Thursday morning.
If it was down to me, we'd move in tomorrow.
So you can highlight any new products or special promotions.